Hello and welcome to the Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Conn. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues Michael Gannon and Craig Swan. Guys, how are you?
Not bad, chap. It's not bad. How are you guys? You right?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Michael, Daniel. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to be joined by you again. It's been a while since we've had a Celtic podcast.
That's right. We've been busy boys, haven't we?
Yeah.
I have to pin everybody down. You managed to get us a day.
I know, just about. I managed to get you two together, the dream team. I think the best place for us to start, obviously, is we're now talking at almost the end of September. The season is now in full flow, and to be fair, it's been a really good start to the season. Like, I don't think Brendan Rodgers could have asked for anything more.
I think really good. It's a slight understatement, to be honest with you. I think the way they started the season, I mean, it's fairly remarkable. I mean, unbeaten, pretty much kind of flawless. I mean, I think the weekend against Falkirk was the first kind of time they weren't completely strolling through a game, and including the European game in that one as well. And yet they still scored 5 goals, won 5-2 to reach the last 4 with a much changed team. When you compare and contrast to this time last year, when Rodgers just walked the door and he was just getting his trying to put his own mark in the squad. The transfer window wasn't great last summer. There was injuries to key players, discontent in the stands about various things, whether it's political or it was the manager coming back, and it was just the atmosphere in the club is completely different. And now it's like party time. I mean, it's like the punters are skipping about, just on a complete high all the time. The Champions League's off to a flyer, top of the league, joint top of the league, and in the cup semi-finals. It couldn't be going much better, really. Which usually means there's something in the corner that's going to be pretty bad and nasty, isn't it? That usually means there's something on the horizon. But at the moment, it's all hunky-dory, isn't it?
Well, the thing that's right around the corner next is St Johnstone in the Premiership. And here's one for you, Swanee. Do you think perhaps it could be Scott Brown, St Johnstone, that Celtic are playing against?
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see Scott being linked with that job, isn't it? And he's obviously doing a fantastic work at Ayr at the moment. And everything you hear and when you're talking to people and you see things and what you're told, he's just taken brilliantly at this management task at Ayr United. He's really done well. He's had a wee spell during last season just to go in and have a wee look at what was needed, and they've started this season absolutely flying. So yeah, I mean, you can fully understand why St Johnstone would like to have a look at Scott Brown. I mean, obviously I'm not part of negotiations at McDermott Park, but it would be a rapid appointment, I would have thought. These things do tend to take a bit of time with contracts and things like that. So even if he's the preferred man, you would be slightly surprised. But again, this is football, so never say never, I guess. But yeah, it would certainly add an intriguing layer to it. Whether anybody would want Celtic as their first game right now, the way Celtic are playing, you would imagine any manager would say, "Can we just leave the appointment to Monday?"
I'll go back to you Monday with the answer.
Yeah, I'll pick things up first thing Monday morning. I'll be on bright and sharp.
Do something like this weekend.
Yeah. Tougher as caretaker.
I don't know what you think about it, but with all due respect to St Johnstone, that was Scott Brown. I'm not sure I'd go to St Johnstone. I know I'm getting off Celtic a wee bit, but that doesn't feel like the right move to me.
Listen, I think St Johnstone's a great club. I've enjoyed covering them over the years, but it's a tough gig. That looks a tough gig. I know there's been a kind of change in ownership. Even that's obviously there's issues with the owner's health, which is not so good at the moment. It just looks a tough gig. I mean, St Johnstone have done brilliantly to survive in the top flight for so long. You just wonder at some point it's going to become too tough to keep them in the top flight. They've got a small budget. It just looks a really tough gig, I think. Is it one for Scott Brown? I don't know. I think he's doing a good job at Ayr. I kind of like to see him doing another wee bit longer. I mean, I know the spell in England. It was good at work for a while. Then it kind of got a bit tough. Just to learn his trade a bit longer, away from your kind of Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs every week and all that. So I just don't know if it would suit him just to maybe sit tight for a season and see where he is. I can understand. I think he's going to be a good manager, Scott Brown. You could tell that as a player as well. By the way, you knew he was cut out for that kind of thing. And don't be fooled by when he's a player, he had that kind of slightly kind of madcap kind of streak, kind of mischievous streak, and a kind of childish streak. But the reality, he was a bit of a student in the game, especially his last few years. He was writing everything down. He was soaking it all up. So you don't be deceived by that kind of side of things either. He's deadly serious when it comes to coaching. So I can see him being I think he will be a top flight manager at some point. Does he go to St Johnstone? I can understand the attraction. It's a job in the Premiership. But if it was me, I think I'd be sitting tight for another year or so and see what happens then. Because the phone's always going to ring because of who he is. And he keeps doing what he's doing, he will get offers. So I don't know. Yeah, I think I take your point. I think it'll be a risky one. I can understand why St Johnstone would be interested, but is it a risk for the man himself? I don't know.
And then, of course, after St Johnstone, Celtic are back on Champions League duty. Borussia Dortmund away. It's certainly going to be a lot tougher than Slovan Bratislava at home, even though Dortmund are in a little bit of sticky patch. They get beat 5-1 off Stuttgart last weekend. You're then, I mean, last season's Champions League finalists. You're then really coming up against one of the A-list elite teams in Europe away from home.
That's a game I'd be excited about, Daniel. I think because of events of the opening night against Slovan Bratislava, it's made it a night for Celtic and the fans to get excited about. Because, listen, there's a well-worn phrase, and it doesn't wash when it comes to Celtic. The word's free hit. There is no such thing as a free hit when you're Celtic. Every game you go into trying to get something or expecting to get something. But it's one, if it's not a free hit, it's certainly pressure off, in the sense that there's no desperate requirement for a result. And it's a great barometer to see where they are at this early stage of their sort of new development, their new progression, this new look team that impressed so much on the first night. We'll get an idea when they go to Dortmund on Tuesday. I think it's one for them to really enjoy. The fans are going to have an absolutely great time, obviously. There's obviously some history between the clubs. There's the good relations between the clubs. There's Celtic Park at the end of last season when the legends played each other, Celtic and Borussia. So it should be a fantastic atmosphere, a great night. And it'll just be interesting to see where Celtic are. Again, you won't be able to gauge, just like you couldn't gauge everything from one game against Slovan Bratislava, you won't be able to gauge everything from one game against Dortmund. But it's just exciting to see them come up against a team like that at this stage, with points on the board and a wee bit of pressure off.
Have either of you guys or both you guys been to Dortmund before? Have you sampled it?
Yeah, I've been.
Yeah, I've not. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going next week, and I'm looking forward to experiencing apparently it's called the Sigma something. I think I don't know it was called that.
Sigma Gunda Park. You just as always call it the Westfalenstadion for years.
Yeah, that's what I always known. And to be honest with you, apparently it's been called this since 2005. Yeah. Why has no one ever mentioned this at any point in time? So I must admit, I'm looking forward to experiencing that kind of atmosphere. I take the point it's a free. I think 3 punches. I don't think it's a free punch because I still think the result, a defeat is not a disaster for Celtic out there. A draw would be a great result. A win would be sensational. A defeat's not a disaster. But I think we do need to see a performance that is different to what we've seen, especially away from home in Europe in recent years.
Yeah, I didn't say there was no such thing as a free hit. Yeah, I didn't say it was a free hit.
No, I didn't say
I said there was a bit of pressure off.
Yeah, I think they need to perform better abroad than they have done. I think they need to show that they can produce a more mature performance. Like, listen, the red cards and 4 and 5-0 defeat, that can't happen. They need to show that's at the window. That can happen in any Champions League. I know that, but it happens too often to Celtic. So they need to go against one of these big teams and actually put up a good fight and stay in the game as long as possible. If they do get beat, I think people will accept that. It's Borussia Dortmund, last year's finalists, Bundesliga side, you name it. But I think we need to see Celtic performing to a more mature level and away from home in Europe. I think that's what we need to see. We know Celtic can play football, and even away from home last year, the spells when they played really well and they can cause problems and they put nice combinations together. But they need to defend under siege and they need to perform over a longer period of time and put up a better fight abroad than they have done. And if they can do that, I think if they get out there, even with a narrow defeat, I think would be kind of a bit of a morale boost for the rest of the campaign. They just don't want anything that's going to damage confidence. That's what I mean. So there's definitely a lot on it beside the result, I think.
I get I'm asking you both how long a piece of string is, right? But you mentioned that a win there would be just, phenomenal for Celtic. But that would probably be Brendan Rodgers' kind of statement win in Europe that he's not really had at Celtic yet. He's done everything at Celtic. He's conquered everything domestically. It's in Europe where it's not. I mean, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any results, but remember a great night at home against Zenit in his first spell in charge, but then obviously Celtic went out. I can't really think, Martin O'Neill had plenty, Neil Lennon against Barcelona. I definitely think
everybody thought Anderlecht away when they won that night was going to be a real launch pad. That season it didn't turn out that way, unfortunately. But on the night, it felt like a big night. When they won that game in Brussels, but it never took off from that point. Listen, there is absolutely no doubt if Celtic beat Borussia Dortmund in their own patch, that is the biggest European result of Brendan Rodgers' tenure at Celtic.
Aye, of course. One of the biggest in Celtic's history, probably.
Sorry?
One of the biggest in Celtic's history.
I'm glad you said one of there. I thought you said biggest first
It'd be massive. Absolutely. You've got to understand the task ahead. I mean, it's not going to be. I mean, it would be a monumental result, but it's going to be incredibly difficult. I mean, it's going to be 81,000 fans at this place, an absolute kind of bare pit of a ground. I know we spoke to Arnie Engels talk about it when he made his debut for Augsburg at the Dortmund. He says it was really good, but enjoyed the kind of noises. It wasn't any more loud than Celtic Park. Celtic Park's loud. If you're a visiting team, you go to Celtic Park, it's pretty loud. So Celtic are going to face that. And it will be different. So and we know these games can get out of hand sometimes. You look back in recent times. I mean, I remember the away game against Lazio in the Europa League under Neil Lennon. That was a big result. Tremendous performance and result. Put it all together. Defensively held on and had to hold on and scored the goals when they could. Something like that's the kind of performance required. But it's an almighty tough task. I mean, you've got to be realistic. I mean, I've not checked the bookies yet, but it's going to be massive odds.
Aye, probably. The other stuff that I want to get your guys' take on before we go on with our lives is that Luis Palma is one of the few players that at the weekend against Falkirk I would suggest has maybe played himself out of contention at Celtic. I think there were several players at the weekend that have got a lot of stick, maybe unduly from fans. And we know that Palma went on Instagram the other day and posted this meme about showing resilience and stuff like that.
I can't just before you go on there. I'm sorry, but I have to, I can't get memories of the game in Lazio out of my mind without realising how stupid I was for thinking it'd be a good idea to buy Michael a loudhailer the night before the game. But yeah, I thought that was a good idea at the time, and that was subsequently proven. That's just on Luis Palma. Listen, I've got a slight bit of sympathy for Luis Palma for last weekend, Daniel, and the fact that there was a lot of changes made to the team. I think in these situations, and the same goes for Alex Bay, and the same goes for Trusty and all of these boys who came in for their first start. I think if you just dip them in singularly, as just a change, come in, make your debut as just one of the 11, the normal starting 11. It's a lot easier. I think I made the point the other night when we were doing our hotline live that, Alex Bay, for example, when he gets pushed aside for the second Falkirk goal, if that's the normal 1 to 11, Dyson Maeder's probably doubled back and blocks that cross from coming in, and no one really remembers what happened. So I do have a bit of sympathy for him on that, but I do agree that he looks like a player who's not kicked on. Well, he's definitely a player who's not kicked on from his initial spell. For whatever reason, and I know he had one or two injury issues in the second half of last season, but Celtic seem to have really taken flight and gotten up to speed and kind of left him in the same spot where he was. He doesn't really seem to have kicked on. And I just look at the Brendan Rodgers team and I see pace, I see speed. I think that's the one thing Palma doesn't have. Mm-hmm. He looks to be a lovely footballer and he can spot a pass. We've seen that early on last year. He's beautiful coming inside and flighting a pass from Matt O'Reilly over the top to volley in at Tynecastle. I mean, he can pick those passes all day long. He's obviously got a football brain on him. But he lacks speed, and I thought that was noticeable against Falkirk. It wasn't as if Falkirk camped in. There was space to run into, there was places to break into, and he just didn't have the pace to get there. And I'm just not sure he fits this Brendan Rodgers team going forward, to be honest.
This is what slightly confuses me, Swanee, that listen, he arrived late in the window last August. for a decent amount of money. Not massive amount of money, but another one of these kind of punts. But I mean, I think this is the kind of player that I think maybe Rodgers alludes to without saying too much about the kind of equipment. He wouldn't have fit into an Ange Postecoglou team either, in the way he kind of plays. Far less a Brendan Rodgers side. I think he's a good player. I think he's got a great whip on him in terms of his light peg, but playing that way and cutting inside and whipping balls into the box, it's not really the way Celtic kind of play.
Michael, you also take a great deal away from your striker in that situation. But you lose a lot of Kyogo, or you look at Adamida's first goal against Falkirk. It's getting in the middle of the goal for, balls being whipped across. If someone's slowing the play down and coming inside all the time, those passes, that's not on.
Celtic's crossing tends to be from the back, from the byline back the way, rather than cutting inside and in the way. They don't really. That's not really the angle of attack they use. Although the two wingers do tend to kind of invert and all that stuff and cut inside. And create space for fullbacks.
They do hang out, don't they, Michael, and let the fullbacks underlap. And again, that was maybe if you flip it by not having Maida when he had to have Lewis Palmer backing him up in a defensive sense, you could maybe make the argument that if that was Greg Taylor that was behind Palmer,
but the problem is
if Palmer comes out wide and Taylor makes that brilliant undercut and run, underlap and run that he creates so many goals with, then he might have looked better as well. So I don't jump all over him, but I just get the feeling it's not going to happen.
And a lot of times with Greg Taylor, the way he plays this season is particular, that he's going to be occupying that inside role as well. And Palmer, they might be running into trouble, running at each other, because he made a will keep the width and stay out wide and get a corner kick, get a throw in the corner, get up that area, and allow Taylor to go inside and occupy space and defenders. I just think that Palmer doesn't really fit in that kind of underlap model either, because he doesn't hug the touchline and create that width you need to get space to allow Taylor to move in there. I just find it hard to see. I feel for the lad a wee bit, because it isn't his kind of game. Listen, it's not to say he can't change. You can add work rate to your game. I mean, I don't think you can add pace that so much, but you can add work rate and pressing. Again, I don't think that's quite his game either. It's not great. It gives away a lot of daft fouls when he presses. He's not a controlled presser. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times he's a wee bit clumsy with his pressing. You'll give away a free kick and it frustrates his manager as well. So I think it's going to be tough for him, isn't it? I think it's an area I'm not entirely sure he's going to get as much game time as he'd like. The only thing is he's a different option, I suppose. So if you aren't changing your tactics and you haven't got balls in the box, and by the way, you've got Ida in there who is good in the air. So as a tactic, they could go to at times. Yeah. But week in, week out, you don't see him fitting that system very well, do you? I don't know. It's
I don't.
Another player, guys, who I feel like is maybe in the wrong movie a wee bit, although I would kind of like to see him get more of a chance than he has got already, is Mike Nawrocki. I mean, obviously, at the weekend, Stephen Welsh started against Falkirk. He came on for the last few minutes. That's a game, Mick, where I would have quite liked to see Nawrocki get a run out and start.
Yeah, I don't think he's not played an awful lot of football. I mean, injured in pre-season. So I don't think he's quite up to speed to play from the start an hour yet. So I think it's a case of dipping them in, getting them back in the pitch. We'll need some games behind the scenes as well. Again, another one. I'm not sure if he's going to fit. They've obviously signed Trusty as well. I don't know. I think he needs to get himself fit. He needs to get himself fit over a longer period of time for a start. He's never had that fitness over a period of time in Celtic. Been really unlucky. So he needs to get fit and firing and really impressing and training to push for a game, because at the moment he's not going to be anywhere near it.
And see, in fairness, Michael, you'll have heard this many times from Brendan Rodgers as well. It's a word he uses a lot, robust. Players have to be robust. You have to remember, Mike Nawrocki got first crack at the situation last year before Liam Scales.
Yep.
And got himself injured. And that's why Liam Scales was brought in for the game against Johnstone.
Yeah.
At this time, earlier last year. And Scales is robust. Scales doesn't miss games. It just, he all through last season when guys were dropping out, even Cameron Carter Vickers was dropping out, missing games. Liam Scales was there all the time. Brendan Rodgers said it the other week. I don't know where we would have been without Liam Scales last season, was his exact words. And I think that was just the reliability And,
I mean, listen, I've seen guys in the past. So
if you're Mike Narocki, it doesn't matter whether you're Paolo Maldini for 2.5 games if you're going to be out for the next 8. It doesn't matter. As Michael said, he ought to get himself fit, but I just worry for his sake that the ship has sailed. His chance is gone now. Austin Trusty's been signed. Brendan Rodgers obviously likes Stephen Welsh. We know that. Mm-hmm. Liam Scales has been sensational, and Cameron Carter-Vickers is a first pick. I think he's struggling now. I agree with Michael. I think he's struggling now.
Yeah.
It reminds me a wee bit. I mean, to be honest with you, I think this guy, it reminds me a wee bit of Jozo Simonovic.
Yeah.
A guy who had all the tools. I mean, he played, he did pretty well. Maybe a bit raw at times, but he could do the job. But he couldn't stay fit enough. No. He was never fit enough for a long period of time to be relied on. Yeah. And therefore, centre-halves, you need a centre-half pair that's going to play most weeks. You look at rotation in teams, you don't often rotate centre-halves because the two centre-halves and the goalkeeper is a key role. And then especially in Scotland, they can play a lot of games in Scotland. The two centre-halves and the goalkeeper aren't going to get stretched that much. Not every week, but there is some weeks when it's not too bad for them. So they can play 30, 40, 50 games without much hassle. And you want a partnership that you can rely on. You don't want to chop and change centre-halves. That's your key partnership in your team. So if you're not going to be fit, it's just you're not going to be involved. You can't rely on someone. You're just not going to be involved. And you look at somebody like Carter Vickers, who has got some injury problems, and obviously he's got a wee issue just now. But he's played large chunks of seasons, kind of through the pain barrier and got on with it, and etc. Albeit he's missed time as well, but he's been pretty reliable over the piece. Also, when he's not there, he's a major miss. You can tell how good he is when he's not there. You just find it hard now to see how Narocki squeezes into that side just now. I can't see him getting the games required to get up to speed to make himself reliable. That's the problem.
It's a pretty simple equation, isn't it, Michael? My own feeling is if Brendan Rodgers thought he was a viable and reliable contender, you're not buying Austin Trusty.
No.
Aye, good point.
So that kind of told me everything I needed to know.
Yeah.
The one guy that I'd point to if you're Palma or Nawrocki, though, that maybe gives you a bit of hope is that, and by no means was he written off, but when Nicholas Kuhn first came into the Celtic squad, after a few games, he didn't look like the answer. He didn't look like he was going to be a first-team mainstay. He didn't really look up to it, to be honest. But now he looks like an absolute world beater. He looks absolutely fantastic every time he plays.
Well, two things to that, Danny. The first thing is Palmer's been there longer than Nicholas Kuhn by 5. True. And the second thing I would go is he's quick.
Also very true. Yeah.
Just he's a fabulous player, but he's got that pace.
Yeah. He's also. Do you not think also Swanee the pennies dropped with him as well? That listen, no, he had issues in terms of his fitness and health last year when he arrived, right? But I've noticed him since pre-season, he is. See what I was talking about the pressing. Well, a man possessed, by the way. I don't know. It looks like he's looked at Dyson Maeda and the work he puts in and thought, well, if that's what's required on that side, I need to do something similar. And by the way, I noticed that big time against Bratislava last week, the amount of work he done off the ball was compared to like 6 months ago was unreal. It's almost if I want to be part of this team, I need to do the Brendan press, and this is what's going to happen.
There's small things as well. They might go completely unnoticed or just wee things, but when he first signed, maybe hanging out around where he shouldn't be out the box when the ball's on the other side. I think of a goal that Celtic scored at Easter Road earlier in the season when Kyogo's shot was parried out, and James Forrest has gone to fetch the rebound. Kuhn's busting his neck to get in between the sticks for a tap-in, and he's adding that. He's adding goals in there as well. Listen, Brendan Rodgers said when he signed him, this guy's quality, and a lot of people scoffed through the first half of the second half of last season, the first period of his spell, because it didn't really look like it. But it looks like the manager's being proved right. Again, we say this all the time. It's only a short sample size. Started the season well. So only have 10 games or whatever it is, but less than that. But the signs are very, very, very good.
Yeah, but I think quality only gets you so far in a Rodgers team as well. I think work rate is up there with quality.
I take the point about Dyson Maeda, mate. Yeah. I think that's a fair point. I think Brendan Rodgers used the phrase last week, he sparks it, he leads it. And I think Michael's right. I think if anybody that plays in those positions at Celtic has one look at Dyson Maeda and thinks, right, that's the barometer. I'm never going to get to that level because no one can get to that level of running. Right. But it takes. I'm gonna have to start doing that type of thing.
Kuhn did it the other night against Bratislava, and it was no surprise when he got to the kind of hour mark. He was absolutely burst.
Yeah.
That's because he's actually a human being, unlike Dyson Maeda, who's a part cyborg.
But it's funny, you sometimes hear football phrases, don't you? And Brendan Rodgers has been using a popular. I've been using one the last couple of weeks when talking about it, when he says your attacking starts with your pressing kind of thing, and you know that's where your passing game comes from and all that.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting when Adam Ida's second goal against Falkirk was a good example of that. The Nicholas Kuhn went, hunted the ball back.
There again.
One pass and Ida's in. And that's,
it was straight from the kickoff. Having just set up the goal beforehand.
Like you couldn't have created an attack if you'd had the kickoff yourself. You couldn't have made an attack that fast.
Yeah, I mean, sprinted from the half
to get it to that area to shift it in Ida to score from where he did. So again, if Nicholas Kuhn, and the good thing for Celtic is if Nicholas Kuhn's seeing the rewards of that graft, which he is by what happened there, then that just encourages you to do it more and more and more, and it all bodes well. Like most things with Celtic this season, it bodes well.
Yeah, that is a perfect example, Sonny. Actually, that's Brendan Ball for you.
Mm-hmm.
Winning it high up the pitch and then setting up the goal. That's exactly what that's a box ticked and then some. That's what he's brought. He's definitely raised his game in that aspect.
Guys, I'll let you get on with your day. Craig, I believe you're obviously through at Lennoxtown just now, but to speak to Callum McGregor, is that right? As we record.
You were close to him at Celtic Park.
If you are Swanee, you're the wrong gaff. I've got some bad news for you.
I better drive the car like Dyson Maeda.
And Mick, what are you up to for the rest of the weekend? And we can look out for in Record Sport Online.
Doubt it. I'm off tomorrow. A day off tomorrow.
Nice
so you won't see me till Friday. But we'll see me in Hotline Live in a few hours.
That was in Hotline Live before then.
I was going to say that's a test. Guys, thanks very much for joining me in the Celtic Record Celtic podcast. And thanks for listening at home. Cheers.